Quiz of Ice and Fire. Hello there, listeners. Thanks for tuning in today for another Quiz of Ice and Fire. I'm Lady Guinevere, and today we're bringing you our 18th quiz. This is our 6th, all about the characters of A Song of Ice and Fire. And as always, we want to thank our generous patrons for their continued support, which has unlocked this bonus feature for everyone. And speaking of bonus features, I want to mention that all of our patrons have access to 2 patron-exclusive episodes, currently one all about the Arthurian influences in A Song of Ice and Fire, and one on the Varamir prologue. And in addition, patrons can now hear the audio of a panel I did at Ice and Fire Con back in April, all about storytelling and world building in Westeros. So head on over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/Radio Westeros to find out how you can join us and gain access to those episodes, among other perks of being a supporter. And now I am very happy to introduce our guest host for this quiz. Today we have Joe Buckley from the Isle of Faces podcast, and I'm so happy to welcome you to Radio Westeros. Hi, Joe.
Hi, Lady Gwen. It's nice to be talking with you again after our little hiatus after the season.
Yes, of course.
Thanks for having me on. It's an honour to join such a list of exalted guest quizzes.
Well, thank you. We're very happy to have you. And of course, we did work together with Aziz over at History Westeros, covering the show. That was quite a ride there.
Yeah, that's one way to say it,
yeah. Exactly. So, but you do have your own podcast, Isle of Faces. And why don't you tell us a little bit about Isle of Faces?
Yeah, sure. Everybody out there might know me better as Sir Buckley. Like Lady Gwen says, I host the Isle of Faces podcast, which started out as a little cast focused on interviewing the content creators and the big personalities from our fandom, how they came to the books themselves, what their stories are, how they came up with the podcast, whatever it might be. And now we've grown pretty faster than I thought. We still have our special guest episodes, but now I'm doing weekly companion podcasts for History of Westeros's Valar Aridus project. There's other episodes covering season 8 in which my lovely wife joins me, and we'll be doing some other ones together soon. So it's quickly grown into a wide variety of topics and episode types, which has been really fun. But those guest episodes are still our bread and butter. Our next guest is going to be Lauren. She's better known as Shakes of Thrones on Twitter. So I'm very excited about that, and so are lots of others. And hopefully I can entice you guys from Radio Westeros on soon as well.
Yeah, we would love to join you. And we had Lauren contribute a song to our last episode, which was absolutely amazing. So she's very talented. And you have another project as well.
I do, yeah.
You do. Tell us about your book.
Slightly larger project, yes. Yeah, back in May, I was able to share finally that for the past, I said 2 years, but it just shows how awful my maths is because it's been 3 years. For the past 3 years, I've been writing a book on the great castles of Westeros, by which I mean the ruling castle of each realm, so Storm's End, Sunspear, etc., etc. And basically, it's just about digging up every fact I possibly can about each of these castles, their origin stories, the big battles, how they're shaped by the geography, and anything else I can think of. It has pretty much consumed my life now, I must admit. I've kind of turned into Beric Dondarrion. I don't really sleep or eat. I don't know my wife's name anymore, but I have fallen in love with writing it, and I am kind of smitten with this book. So hopefully it'll be done soon rather than later, so I can share it with everyone. I do have to say thank you to yourselves included for all the support and interest I've received since announcing it, because I certainly didn't expect that kind of reaction or interest.
Yeah, well, we're all very excited for it because this is the kind of project that appeals to all of us fans and content creators, this kind of deep dive into the details.
Oh, yeah, it's pretty deep, yeah. It's far, far too deep for me.
We'll pull you back out.
Yeah, I'm going to need a big breath.
Okay, so we're going to get on a little life raft of silliness here and dive into our quiz. This is 15 questions about characters. Get your pens and papers or however you keep track, if you do that, handy, listeners. Don't forget, we do like to hear your results across social media or wherever you speak to us. So keep track as you go along. Let us know. And as always, we're starting our first question with our guest. So over to you for question 1, Joe.
Yeah, honoured. I'd love to start. So, question 1 then. Which character, when it's put to him that Bran Stark's life is not worth living following his fall, disagrees, arguing, I beg to differ. Death is so terribly final, while life is so full of possibilities.
Life is full of possibilities.
Yeah. Casting minds back straight away there.
There you go. Question 2. After a spectacular fall from grace, to which member of the faith does Queen Marjorie confess that she'd like to scratch her eyes out?
Short and simple, that one.
Yeah, short and simple.
Okay, so question 3 then, a bit of a longer one. Which character is asked by Jaime if he believes in ghosts, to which they answer in the affirmative, telling a short story about a woman leaving her scent in the room after she's gone. He goes on to conclude that if we leave something behind us in life, like scent, then surely it's similar when we die.
Maybe a bit more obscure. And
yeah, definitely.
Also kind of interesting. Yeah. Question 4 is brings us across the narrow sea to Braavos. What name does Arya give to the character found at the House of Black and White, who appears to be a pale young girl with a gaunt face? Although she looks young, she is in fact 36 years old, and her real name is a mystery.
Always a little bit dodgy thinking about people that Arya meets, seeing as not many of them end up in a nice place.
Right.
So question 5. Which character, whose father is Hotbean, is full of grief following the death of her brother and attacks Tyrion with a knife, only to be restrained by Ser Jorah Mormont? Her large eyes are said to be trusting. So maybe Hotbean will jog some memories. It's quite a unique name.
It's probably only one Hotbean.
Yeah, you're not going to get too many.
Question 6 now. Back over to Westeros, but now we're into the wildling territory. Which wildling, known to be a friend of the Night's Watch, was the primary mentor to Varamir Sixskins, being the one who taught him about the moral boundaries of skin changing, which he called abominations. And if you're a patron and you listened to our episode all about Varamir, you should know this one.
Homework. We're jumping right back to Essos, going zigging and zagging. Question 7. When Daenerys forms her to which initially reluctant character does she offer her wedding gift of the Dragonbone bow? She perhaps chose this gift in particular because he had previously halted Kaholo's attempt to slit her throat by killing him with an arrow. So you got to dive back into all those Dothraki names and pick one out.
Yeah, just pick one because I always fare best with the Dothraki questions if I just make a stab at it.
Yeah, throw a dart.
Guess one. Yeah, exactly. Question 8. Which member of the Westerosi Small Council is known for his sickliness? As Master of Coin, the Iron Bank envoy Noho Dimitis hounds this man so persistently that he retires to his bed, coughing up blood all the way.
Oh dear.
Ick.
Yeah, quite. Question 9, we're doing a lot of outer territories here. Which Lord of the Lonely Light put his name forth for the Ironborn Kingsmoot? He is championed by his 3 sons and claims that he will lead the Ironborn west beyond the Sunset Sea to a magical land where death does not exist, and every man and his wife will be a king and queen. It's a bit of a lighter question there, not quite as bad as the one before.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. Happy promises.
Happy promises for once.
Question 10. We're zooming all the way down to Dorne. Which Dornish lord previously counted Quentyn Martell as his ward? He holds the titles the Blood Royal and Warden of the Stoneway. He has a son, Cletus, and 2 daughters, Enis and Gwyneth.
Enis, I'm glad you had to pronounce that one, not me. I would have got that wrong.
I'm only assuming that it's similar to,
I think you're right.
to Welsh.
I think you're right.
Must be the Welsh influence of Dorne that George has talked about.
So, question 11 then. Which character, nicknamed Homeless, is a general of a sellsword company who complains often of blisters on his feet from long marches and is not the bravest of men. He is also very fond of elephants. Of all the nicknames, I think Homeless probably has to rank somewhere near the bottom in Westeros nicknames.
Yeah, exactly. Not very
top notch.
No, exactly. But elephants. Okay, guys. Surely that is a huge clue. Question number 12. Which Night's Watchman is injured in the battle against the Weeper's men at the Bridge of Skulls? This is something that happens off page, as a hint. This fact must have added to his dismay when Jon Snow decided to let the wildlings through the wall en masse.
Tough one. Or is it? Question 13. Young Robert Arryn's favourite stories are of a particular Vale legend. The legend, over the years, has become conflated with artist Arryn, who is Sweet Robin's idol. I have to admit, I do enjoy these legends of old, and especially this one. So,
yeah, this is a good one, and it's also very interesting the way that legend, which is quite ancient, probably from the First Men, from the Age of Heroes, is conflated in history with one of the Andal invaders. So I find that sort of stuff pretty fascinating. So, yeah. Okay, question 14. Which member of the Stark household guard at Winterfell is named the new captain of the guard by Robb Stark, who's acting while his mother is incapacitated after the attempt on Bran's life?
We've got a lot of central characters and a lot of not so central characters in this one, haven't we?
Yeah.
We could go in central right out far. We'll go right back up to the wall for our final question then, for question 15. Which Night's Watchman, known for his 3 fingers, is the main cook at Castle Black? He is among the candidates to be the new Lord Commander, and he keeps getting 5 votes, to which Clydas quips are the votes of those who want him out of the kitchen. So a rare Clydas humour there to jog your memory.
Might be the only Clydas joke.
I think it probably is, yeah. No. That famous Clydas joke.
And there's a huge clue to this man's name, of course, in the question there. So we will leave that there, and we'll be back after this break with our answers. Okay, and we're back with our answers. So we're going to go through, restate the questions, and give you the answers. So over to you, Joe, again, starting with question 1.
Sure. So, yeah, back to the beginning then. So just as a reminder, the question was, which character, when it's put to him that Bran Stark's life is not worth living, disagrees, and he says, I beg to differ, etc., etc. And the answer is, of course, Tyrion Lannister. So that would be right back at the beginning. I guess you have to cast your mind right back. And this in a conversation with Jaime, we have a little quote in the lead up. And it's so Jaime says, he could end this torment. I would, if it were my son, it would be a mercy. And Tyrion replies, I advise against putting that suggestion to Lord Eddard, sweet brother. He would not take it kindly. Even if the boy does live, he will be a cripple. Worse than a cripple, a grotesque. Give me a good clean death. And Tyrion replies, speaking for the grotesques, I beg to differ. Death is so terribly final, while life is full of possibilities. It's just on that really cool kind of singular family scene we get of the Lannisters having brunch and then never again.
Yeah, it is. And then, of course, that sort of that theme comes back in Jaime's arc when not very long afterwards, he finds himself a cripple.
Yeah, exactly.
And he has to struggle with whether he really just wants to die or live. So, yeah, that is, that's it. So Tyrion was the answer there. And I tell you, wonder if if that was obvious or not, because with these main characters, sometimes it's not easy to find questions that are even a little bit challenging. So, okay, moving on to a more... maybe a more challenging character. This one had to do with Marjorie Tyrell, who has fallen from grace and is being forced to make her confessions to this particular member of the faith. And she confesses that she'd like to scratch this woman's eyes out. And the answer is Septa Unella. And you get this Marjorie telling Cersei, who comes to visit her in Feast for Crows while she's being held in prison. Until you came, I was allowed no visitors but septas. One comes every hour to ask if I wish to confess my fornications. They will not even let me sleep. They wake me to demand confessions. Last night, I confessed to Septa Unella that I wished to scratch her eyes out. And Cersei, of course, thinks that it's a shame she didn't do it. Not for Unella's part, but more because it would make Marjorie seem more guilty in the eyes of the High Sparrow. But, of course, Cersei will grow to probably wish that Marjorie had done that and worse to Unella for her own part, so...
Yeah, that was a tough one. I think maybe I would have said Unella only from remembering her name from the show. I doubt I could have remembered it from the books alone.
Exactly. There's more of a cadre of them named in the books.
Yeah, there's a few more.
Okay.
Okay, so question 3, which was the question on a character asking Jaime if he believes in ghosts and the what we leave behind. And the answer is, of course, Qyburn. Giving a little bit into the higher questions, I guess. And he goes on to tell Jaime this little story, and he says, once at the Citadel, I came into an empty room and saw an empty chair. Yet I knew a woman had been there only a moment before. The cushion was dented where she had sat. The cloth was still warm, and her scent lingered in the air. If we leave our smells behind us when we leave a room, surely something of our souls must remain when we leave this life. The Archmaesters did not like my thinking low, well Marwyn did, but he was the only one. So that's right back at the beginning when we were first introduced to Qyburn after Jaime's lost his hand, and I guess we don't know yet how creepy he's going to turn out to be, but this is a little hint towards that path, I suppose.
Yeah, it's not the first mention of Marwyn, but it is one of the early mentions of him, and it's obviously well before we know who he is or, what his position or role is going to be. And that's, typical George to kind of sprinkle these little offhand references throughout people's point of views. And then ultimately, of course, we'll see that Marwyn is probably going to play a much bigger role in things going forward. So we do look forward to that particular storyline. Now on to question 4. This had to do with a character that Arya met at the House of Black and White, who appears to be a pale young girl, but she's actually a 36-year-old woman. We don't know her real name, and of course Arya calls her the Waif. And here we go with a quote from Feast for Crows. The kindly man never told her his name, neither did the waif, the little girl with the big eyes and hollow face, who reminded her of another little girl named Weasel. Like Arya, the waif lived below the temple with 3 acolytes, 2 serving men, and a cook called Uma.
That's one of those creepier, not really figured out type things, isn't it? The waif and all of that. And especially the Weasel mention, that just makes it even darker to me, remembering Weasel and what happened there. Yeah. Yeah,
so we know that we get a sense that there's maybe some sort of real tragic backstory to this girl, as there probably is.
So often is.
Yes. Okay. Right.
Okay, back over to... we're sticking on Essos, actually, with question 5, which was, of course, about Hotbean. Someone's father was named Hotbean, and in their grief they attacked Tyrion, only to be restrained by Ser Jorah. And of course, the girl with large eyes that are said to be trusting is Penny. And we get a quote here from obviously Tyrion's POV thinking about this. She looks so young, he thought. A girl, that's all she is. A girl and almost pretty if you can forget that she's a dwarf. Her hair was a warm brown, thick and curly, and her eyes were large and trusting. Too trusting, which just makes me sad having to think about Penny and her storyline, and it's real downer here in the middle of the quiz.
Yeah, it is. Poor Penny. Of course, we later find out that Penny was one of those dwarfs that had been hired by Peter Baelish to provide some entertainment at the Purple Wedding, entertainment that was specifically meant to provoke Tyrion. And then her brother does get killed when Cersei casts her kind of worldwide dragnet for dwarf heads. So Penny and Tyrion's arcs just are, intertwined really throughout the whole thing. So we're going to eagerly wait to see what happens with Penny now that she's really been dragged into a war zone.
Yeah, really in the thick of it. Probably going to get worse before it gets better for Penny, probably.
Yeah, I would anticipate that too. So, okay, that was our downer.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what we call this next one, which is about the wildling skin changer who was a friend to the Night's Watch and Varamir Sixskin's primary mentor. He's the one that taught him all about the moral boundaries of skin changing, which, are there for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Varamir's mentor was Hagon. And in the Varamir prologue, we learn that Hagon had been given a particularly horrific and abominable end by his protege, Varamir. It says, abomination. That had always been Hagon's favorite word. Abomination, abomination, abomination. To eat of human meat was abomination. To mate as wolf with wolf was abomination. And to seize the body of another man was the worst abomination of all. Hagon was weak, afraid of his own power. He died weeping and alone when I ripped his second life from him. Varamir had devoured his heart himself. He taught me much and more, and the last thing I learned from him was the taste of human flesh.
Wow. All the POVs have their, the prologue POVs have their certain different kinds of darkness, but I think this might be the worst one, the last one we get, especially when you consider how it links with Bran still and what he's up to with Hodor.
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess we're still on a downer in the middle. We didn't really rise too much higher there.
Well, no. Maybe we will in the next one.
Yeah, the next one will be better. The next one's all about gifts and people being friends, so it's much better than skin
eating
changing.
Human flesh.
Yeah. Question 7. Back to Daenerys over in Essos. She's giving away her wedding gift of the dragon bone bow. But who did she give it to? And it was, of course, Aggo, who had saved her life previously by killing Kaholo for her. And she says, to you I give the dragonbone bow that was my bride gift. It was a double-curved, shiny, black and exquisite, taller than she was. And she goes on, I name you Co and ask your oath that you would live and die as blood of my blood, riding at my side to keep me safe from harm. Much better.
Yeah, much better. And Dany forming her Co, of course, is it's a masterful stroke by her to kind of bind these Dothraki to her. Otherwise, who knows, some of them may have ultimately turned on her. But I suppose seeing dragons born from that funeral pyre was...
Certainly helps, yeah.
Pretty helpful.
Yeah. But I suppose that's like one of her first actions as queen in her own right after Drogo's gone. So I guess that's her learning or putting into practice the lessons she'd learned along the Dothraki Sea, etc.
Yeah. Okay, so that we're going back to Westeros now, to Small Council. Man known for his sickliness and coughing. Hope this one was sort of a softball. Even though this particular character isn't really major, it's pretty much what he's known for is coughing. So Giles Rosby is the answer. Cersei tells Felice that Lord Giles has been threatening to die for as long as I've known him, but he's still with us and will be for many years, I do hope. No doubt he'll cough the whole lot of us into our graves. And, of course, that's wishful thinking by Cersei because she views Giles as indeed he seems to be a very weak person who she could manipulate. So it's useful to have someone like that on her small council. At least for someone like Cersei, it
Yeah,
is.
classic Cersei thinking.
Yeah, right.
Get the weakest people around me, that'll help.
Yes, exactly.
Right back to the outer edges again. So question 9 was about the Kingsmoot and which Lord of the Lonely Light put his name forth with his 3 sons and his claim to sail west. And that was, of course, do we say Gilbert or Gilbert, do you think? We'll say
I think it's Gilbert.
Gilbert.
Yeah.
Okay. Gilbert Farwind is the answer from obviously the people of the Lonely Light. And from Aeron's POV, he thinks on this. Aeron knew some of the Farwinds, a queer folk who held lands on the westernmost shores of Great Wick and the scattered isles beyond, rocks so small that most could support but a single household. Of those, the Lonely Light was the most distant, 8-day sail to the northwest among rookeries of seals and sea lions and the boundless grey oceans. The Farwinds there were even queerer than the rest. Some said they were skin changers, unholy creatures who could take on the forms of sea lions, walruses, and even spotted whales, the wolves of the wild sea. So that's pretty cool. So I like the Farwinds and the idea of the Lonely Light and all the way, especially when you look out the map and you see how far away they really are from everything else.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously we're not on video here, but I have a map of Westeros behind me, and you can see it. You probably can see me turning around because I'm trying to figure out.
I'm doing the same thing to mine, yeah.
Yeah, we're trying to figure out. It's so far from the Iron Islands. Okay, I should stop turning my head from my microphone. It's so far from the Iron Islands that it's not even on the map.
Yeah.
That I have. You know, it's just off the left edge of that map that I have. So, yeah, it's a pretty fascinating place. And of course, you know, we get a lot of theories about what lies beyond the Sunset Sea. Is it something new, or is Westeros actually a globe? I guess we'll see.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. Or we can all just discuss it and debate it.
We'll make up our own.
Yeah. Okay, so now question 10, back down to Dorne. For the name of the Dornish lord who once had Quentyn Martell as his ward. He's called the Blood Royal, Warden of the Stoneway, and we're talking about Anders Ironwood. And Arianne says to Aerys Oakheart in Feast for Crows, Anders Ironwood is Christian Cole reborn. He whispers in my brother's ear that he should rule after my father, that it's not right for men to kneel to women, and that Arianne especially is unfit to rule, being the willful wanton that she is. So there's a bit of tension there. It turns out to be kind of largely, her anger over the Ironwoods and, of course, her brother Quentyn turns out to be somewhat baseless. It's just a result of her not knowing her father's intricate secret plans, right?
Yeah. That Kristen Cole reference is, I guess that's one of those ones that just gets a bit better right now. We've got Fire and Blood as well. You can just refer to that a bit quicker and see what she means, because, yeah, she's pretty dead on, actually.
Yeah, interesting. So, we'll see how that plays out. I'm sure that particular reference was not laid there by accident. So.
No, of course. Nothing is. No accidents for George.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Kind of connected to Dawn, there's a little hint then. There's question 11, which was about Homeless, the general of a sellsword company, complains of blisters and likes elephants. This might have been another softball, I think. Of course, it's Harry Strickland, the general of the Golden Company. Not Cersei, who was also fond of elephants, according to the show. So, and John Connington, of course, thinks of Harry Strickland in Dance. He says that Harry Strickland had always been a genial man, better at hammering out contracts than at hammering on foes. He had a nose for gold, but whether he had the belly for battle was another question. Yeah,
interesting. Harry is painted as, more of an administrator than a great warrior, which is a, kind of drastic, about face, I guess, if you will, for the Golden Company, of course.
Yeah,
founded by Bittersteel, who was a great warrior. may also have been an administrator of some talent. We don't really know that. But anyways, Harry's elephants, spoiler alert, do indeed end up making the trip. So
Yeah. Good job.
if you were disappointed in the lack of elephants on Game of Thrones, then make no mistake, we'll get elephants in The Winds of Winter.
Yeah.
So, question 12 now was back in the Night's Watch. Or did we already? Yeah. Okay, question 12 was back in the far north. Had to do with the Night's Watchman who was injured in a battle against the Weeper's men at the Bridge of Skulls. And this is, like I said, off page, so you might have had to really rack your brain to figure out who this person was. He sustained a head injury during that battle, and the answer is Bowen Marsh.
There you go. I definitely wouldn't have. There's a lot of people to choose from if you ask who's dismayed at John. I guess Bowen Marsh is head of that party, but I certainly forgot that he'd taken an injury. I wouldn't have remembered that without double checking.
Yeah, so you got to figure, one thing that we've suggested is that he's suffering from some sort of, PTSD because he's had to recover from this severe injury. He had this sort of horrific battle, and, what were they doing? They were defending the wall against the crossing of the wildlings, lost so many of the Night's Watch in that effort. And now John is going to let them just come through. So here's what he has to say when John makes that decision in A Dance with Dragons. The Lord Commander must pardon my bluntness, but I have no softer way to say this. What you propose is nothing less than treason. For 8,000 years the men of the Night's Watch have stood upon the wall and fought these wildlings. Now you mean to let them pass, to shelter them in our castles, to feed them and clothe them, and teach them how to fight. Lord Snow, must I remind you, you swore an oath. And what's very interesting to me is that this comment by Bowen is kind of emblematic of the fact that the Night's Watch have actually forgotten what their oath means, because their oath isn't really to protect Westeros from wildlings. It's to protect Westeros from yet another threat from the north, which John is keenly aware of, but is having a difficult time convincing his fellows of the seriousness of it. So.
Yeah, it's a great. All of this is just a great example of how George puts kind of different points of view, not in the literal sense of chapters, but of, the reasons why they disagree. So you can't really say Bowen Marsh is wrong. Like you say, if he's suffered at this battle, he's not wrong just because he's in the adversarial to our POV that we're reading through. So yeah, it's just really good to see all those complex points of view merge at the wall and this big decision that one person's got to make. Poor John.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Poor John.
Poor John. Back to the fun legends then. Question 13 was about young Robert Arryn's favourite stories and the legend that had been kind of mixed with Artis Arryn, and the question was who is Sweet Robin's idol, and that was of course the Winged Knight, so which is one of the cooler legends, I think. And Sansa gives us a little bit in Feast. She says there are 100 tales of his adventures. Little Robert knew them all so well he could have recited them from memory, but he liked to have them read to him all the same. Sweetling, we have to go, she told the boy, but I promise I'll read you 2 tales of the Winged Knight when we reach the gates of the moon. So lucky Robert there getting two for one. Yeah,
Sansa is interesting as they're trying to get Robert out of the Eyrie here to, when they're evacuating. He's being typically kind of combative about it all. But Sansa really shows here, and in a lot of other ways in her Feast for Crows chapters, how she's really learning how to manipulate people, to get things, the way she wants them. So she's got this little fun negotiation going on with little Sweet Robin.
I think it's a nice little mirror as well, like her saying that Robert can recite them all, and it's similar to Sansa right back at the tourney in Game of Thrones. She can recite all the tales and the deeds of all the knights, and in the same way that Bran also can from his stories of Old Nan. So there's a nice little comparison there.
Yeah, I think in a sense it reminds us that they're all just kids too.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But life is not a song,
Yeah.
little sweetling, and she actually uses that word in that quote.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's move on back to Winterfell. Rob has to name a new captain of the guard after his father goes down south and takes Jory Cassell, who was the captain of the guard, with him. So he names Hal Mullen as captain of the household guard.
One of these difficult H names. There's a lot of them at Winterfell. You've got to try to remember. There's Hal and Harwin and Hullen, and you got to remember which one's which.
Yes, exactly.
Hodor.
And, Hodor. A lot of people, have theories about Hal and Harwin as well. So yeah, I think those two in particular, a lot of people kind of conflate them. Hal Mullen is, of course, named as Catelyn's personal guard in the Battle of Whispering Wood. He asked for the honor of protecting her, and Robb did allow that he would be Cat's kind of sworn sword at that point. So he does remain in that capacity when she later travels south to treat with Renly and Stannis. I like Hal Mullen. He's got this reputation for always stating the obvious.
Yeah, it's quite funny, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just a little comic relief in some pretty serious situations.
Yeah.
So now on to the final question, Joe.
Yeah, one step further north up to the wall, and this is about which Night's Watchman with his 3 fingers, which is, as you mentioned, is a kind of bit of a clue, is the main cook at Castle Black and who keeps not getting to be Lord Commander. And the answer, of course, is 3-fingered Hob, our favourite cook, probably, of all the cooks. And we even have the results of his latest attempt to be new Lord Commander. And it was 203 votes for Sir Dennis Mallister, Sam said, 169 for Cotter Pike, 137 for Lord Janos Slint, 72 for Othel Yarwick, 5 for 3-finger Hob, and 2 for Dolorous Ed. So he's not last. He's still not last. He's above Ed. Yes.
Kind of funny that Dolorous Ed gets those 2 votes.
Yeah, I love that. That's brilliant.
So, of course, that's not the final voting. We all know. It's not how it goes in the end. But Hob getting those votes, got to wonder who they were.
Clydas was right as well. Still gets 5.
I'm with Clydas. So, although sometimes his descriptions of his food, actually pulling that quote, I had read some other descriptions of things he made, and his cooking sounds pretty decent. So.
Yeah. Be quiet,
in a hearty way, working with probably.
Yeah, he's not got a lot to work with.
Exactly.
To be fair. Yeah.
All right, so that was our 15th answer, and we want to know how you all did. Shoot us your results on social media, as you connect with us on Twitter or Facebook or on Patreon or YouTube, however you find us. Send us an email. We want to know how you did. Joe, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this was fun. And why don't you tell us a little bit about where everyone can find you and your project?
Yeah, sure. You can normally find me hanging around on Twitter. Sir Buckley is my username. That's the Westerosi spelling, SER. The Isle of Faces you can find in all the normal places, which I didn't mean to rhyme, it just happened that way. It's on YouTube and Podbean and anywhere else you normally look. And hopefully that book will be there joining them soon. So yeah, thanks for having me. It's a great way to spend an afternoon. I hope you guys keep going with these quiz podcasts. I love a good quiz, bit of trivia. I never get off Song of Ice and Fire Sporkle, so it's always looking forward to these episodes.
Yeah, I have to say that we were kind of Sporkle addicts at one point.
Oh, yeah.
Too, so yeah,
it's dangerous.
Yeah, it is. Thank you again for joining us. Thank you, listeners, for being here. We will continue doing quizzes because we love to do this as well. And we will be back soon with a new episode of Radio Westeros. Keep your eyes out for that. As always, thanks for listening and see you next time.